It was a rainy night in New York City. The streets glistened with water, neon lights bending across puddles as if painted in broken colors. Claire, 26 years old, dragged a small suitcase through the wet sidewalks. Her breath was visible in the icy wind, her hands trembling more from nerves than the cold. She was about to start a new chapter of her life in a new apartment. The building stood tall in front of her, 13 floors high, its concrete facade weathered and gray, a place that seemed forgotten by time. There were no welcoming lights, no noise from within, only silence broken by the occasional thunder in the sky. Something about it felt wrong, but Claire forced herself to smile. It was affordable, and that was all she needed. The landlord was waiting in the dim lobby, an old man with pale eyes and skin that looked as though it hadn't seen sunlight in years. He handed her a brass key with trembling fingers. "Your unit is on the 10th floor," he said quietly. "Tenant access is up to the 12th. The 13th floor isn't for you. And whatever happens, don't touch the door of room 1301. Claire forced a polite laugh, trying to brush it off as some strange superstition. She thanked him and stepped into the creaking elevator. The numbers glowed as she rose to the 10th floor. But even as she entered her apartment, the warning clung to her thoughts. Room 1301. Why mention it at all? Her new apartment was small but comfortable. That night, as she unpacked her clothes, she heard faint knocks on the walls. It sounded like someone tapping from the other side. She pressed her ear against it, but there was only silence. She shook her head, convincing herself it was just the building settling. Still, she slept uneasily. Over the next few days, Claire tried to adapt. She met a few neighbors, though most avoided eye contact and closed their doors quickly. The building felt alive in strange ways. Pipes groaned, lights flickered, and every night, Claire heard footsteps above her ceiling. At first, she thought it was just someone walking upstairs, but according to the blueprint in the lobby, the 12th floor was the top floor allowed for tenants. Above her, there should be nothing except the sealed 13th floor. One evening, Claire gathered her courage to ask a neighbor, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, about the noises. The woman froze, her hands tightening around her grocery bag. "Don't ask about that floor," she whispered. "People who go there never come back." Then she shut her door without another word. The more she tried to ignore it, the stronger her curiosity grew. At night, the sounds became louder. Not just footsteps, dragging sounds, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. Once she swore she heard a whisper through her vent, a faint voice calling her name. On the 4th night, unable to resist any longer, Claire decided to investigate. She took the elevator after midnight when the halls were quiet. The elevator's buttons only went up to 12, but when she pressed them, she noticed something strange. Beneath the panel was a faint outline, as though there had once been another button, a 13th button, now removed. Her heart pounded. She almost turned back, but then, without pressing anything, the elevator began to rise, past 12. The number 13 flickered faintly on the screen, even though no button existed. The doors opened to a dark hallway. The 13th floor was nothing like the others. The air was thick and cold, as if the building itself was exhaling frost. The walls were cracked, the wallpaper peeling, and faint water stains crawled toward the ceiling. A single overhead light flickered, casting long shadows across the corridor. Claire stepped out, every instinct screaming to go back. But something pulled her forward. Each door she passed was numbered, most scratched or faded. 1305, 1303, 1302, until finally 1301. The door was different. Blackened wood, the number painted in red that looked smeared as if written in haste. The knob was old brass, tarnished yet glimmering faintly in the dark. Her hand hovered over it, her breath catching in her throat. She told herself she'd only look, nothing more. She turned the knob. The door creaked open. The room was empty, but not in a normal sense. The walls were bare concrete, stained dark, as though something had seeped into them long ago. The windows were covered, and yet somehow moonlight spilled inside. At the center of the room stood a single chair, facing the wall. She stepped inside cautiously. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Her pulse quickened. She told herself it was fine. She could leave any time. She reached for the door handle, but it didn't move. No matter how hard she twisted, it wouldn't open. When she turned back, the chair was no longer facing the wall. It faced her. She froze. Her breath hitched. The chair had moved, though she hadn't seen it happen. A shadow flickered across the corner of the room. She spun, but there was nothing there. Then came a whisper, low and broken, as though carried through walls. "Claire." Her blood ran cold. No one should know her name. The room stretched. The walls felt farther apart than before, the ceiling higher. The shadows grew longer, curling like smoke. She tried to shout, but her voice caught in her throat. Then she saw it. A figure hunched in the corner, its limbs twisted unnaturally. It crawled slowly into the dim light, its face obscured by long strands of black hair. Its mouth opened wider than humanly possible, a dark hollow where a scream should have been. The lights flickered violently. Every time they came back on, the figure was closer. 1 step, 2 steps, until it stood just inches from her face. "Leave," it hissed. The voice layered with echoes, as if 100 voices spoke at once. Claire stumbled backwards, slamming against the locked door. Tears filled her eyes. She begged, pleaded, clawed at the handle. Then the lights went out completely. When they returned, she was no longer in the room. She stood in the same hallway where she had entered, but the numbers on the doors were wrong. 1401, 1501, 1601, floors that didn't exist. She ran, desperate to find the elevator, but the hall stretched endlessly, doors repeating in impossible sequences. Every few steps, she'd pass 1301 again, the same black door staring at her like an eye. Her breathing grew ragged. She realized with horror she was trapped in a loop. The whispers returned, louder now, surrounding her. Some begged for help, others laughed, a chorus of the damned. Then the doors began to slam open one by one. Pale arms reached from inside the rooms, clawing at the air, trying to drag her in. She screamed, pulling away, until finally she was forced back against the door of 1301. It swung open, swallowing her whole. Inside, the figure awaited, taller now, its face revealed, hollow sockets where eyes should be, a smile ear to ear, bloodless and endless. It raised a hand, and the air around Claire grew heavy. She couldn't breathe. The last thing she saw was the chair, now occupied, and it wasn't the figure sitting in it. It was her. Claire woke in her apartment, gasping for air. Morning sunlight streamed through the window. She sat up quickly, her heart racing. Had it all been a nightmare? She rushed to the mirror. Her reflection looked pale, her eyes darker than usual. A knock came at the door. She opened it to find the landlord, his face grim. He stared at her as though seeing a ghost. "You went up there, didn't you?" She tried to speak, but no sound came out. The landlord shook his head slowly. "You shouldn't have opened it. Once you enter, it never lets you go. You're not the tenant anymore. You're part of it." He turned and walked away. Claire closed the door, trembling. She glanced back at the mirror. Her reflection did not move. It just smiled, slowly, as the room grew darker. And somewhere on the 13th floor, room 1301's door closed again, waiting for the next curious soul.